Folks, Dom Lawson here from Metal Hammer magazine with another pointless load of old bollocks, me waffling and going a lot, and as well, be going I'll probably be going I'll probably stick my finger in my ear and say immediately afterwards. So there you go. It's kind of a victory for the inarticulate, chubby middle-aged men of the world, really, that anybody watches this at all. But there you go. But anyway, today I shall be talking to you about that wonderful thing, progressive metal. Now, I'd like to start by saying beware false prophets. Not beware lost prophets, although do beware lost prophets, because they might make you listen to their music, although nice chaps. Ironically, or not ironically, don't know. Is it ironic that they're nice? No, I'm sure there's lots of nice people in awful bands. But anyway, it's more the haircuts that are awful than the music, really, with Lost Prophets, isn't it? It's just some unforgivable barnets going on there. But anyway, my point is, a lot of people kind of talk about, you hear a lot of music journalists and, and just general people online, of various levels of credibility, talking about modern metal and what what the future of metal is going to be and what represents the cutting edge, I suppose, of heavy music. And I'm just a little bit worn out and bored of people saying that overtly commercial kind of metalcore and new metal and influenced stuff that's that kind of ignores everything that happened in metal before the Deftones and Pantera is somehow incredibly original and groundbreaking. When another metalcore band gets, someone like Bring Me the Horizon or something gets touted as like, this is what modern metal sounds like. And you just think, well, yeah, but that's what modern metal sounded like in 1995 in Sweden. I mean, it's not, the fact that the kids that are playing that kind of music don't even know that they're ripping something off from 20 years ago is hardly the point. It's not that original. Metalcore 10 years ago seemed like, when Killswitch Engage first came out, it seemed like something vaguely fresh, but even then it was heavily influenced by In Flames and all the rest of it. So it wasn't, it wasn't groundbreaking really. It was just kind of repackaged in such a way that it made an impact, particularly at the end of the new metal era when people were sick to death of listening to that shite. For not that it was all shite, but a lot of it was. So anyway, beware false prophets. People telling you that something's the next big thing or the future of heavy music when plainly it's not. And I'm not saying that I know what the answer to the question what is the future of metal is really, but I do know that there are some labels and some bands that are at least trying in a genuine, a non-contrived way to create something new. And I think very much at the forefront of that ethos and that kind of approach to releasing music is the UK's very excellent Basic Records, who have, like most labels, have released some right old tosh, but the vast majority of everything they've put out has been genuinely forward-thinking and exciting stuff. Now, you say what you like about the djent movement. It's got a silly name which doesn't help, but the way that most people froth and masturbate with big dewy-eyed grins on their faces when you mention Meshuggah, and then they'll turn around and say, yeah, but all the djent stuff's rubbish. Well, it's not rubbish. It's just like, it's just influenced by Meshuggah, which doesn't, who do you want it to be influenced by? Funeral for a Fucking Friend? Don't think so. So, so bands like Tesseract and Periphery and, Chimp's Banner and all that kind of stuff, Personally, I love it. I think most of that stuff's really great, and obviously, as with any scene, there's going to be some mediocre pap in there, but the vast majority of it, I think, is at least aiming in the right direction. And I think Basic are at the forefront of pushing that scene, if it is a scene, forward. And they've also got bands like Aliases as well, and their latest release, which is the one I want to talk to you about, and I've already been talking for 4 minutes and haven't even mentioned the fucking band yet, is Seven Horns, Seven Eyes, who I think are from California. Don't really care if they are or not, they're American anyway. And they are, I don't know, the simple way of describing it is progressive death metal, really, but if you say that, people think about Blackwater Park by Opeth, and really that's not what I mean at all. Although they do have, one or two things in common with Opeth, but not really a lot. But essentially, I mean, Seven Horns, Seven Eyes are a death metal band, but one that are very forward-thinking and quite proggy in their own way. I would say that it's definitely... well, anyway, the album's called Throes of Absolution, and it's out. It came out on Basic on Monday, the 23rd, if that was a Monday. I think it's an astonishing record. I think it's astonishing for two main reasons. Firstly, it doesn't sound like everybody else. It doesn't sound like a djent album or like a lot of modern notions of what you know, technical death metal or progressive death metal are supposed to be. You know, and I think that a lot of prog metal falls into kind of one or two categories really. It's either that incredibly over technical, widdly stuff that's influenced by Dillinger Escape Plan, but exhibits very little of the, you know, the songwriting skill that Dillinger Escape Plan have. You know, just ridiculously mathematical and complex, but with no actual songs. Or it's just trying to sound like Dream Theater, which is all very well if you're Dream Theater, and in fact it's all very well if you're Symphony X, but really we don't need more bands that sound like that, and a lot of it's just dull. You know, it's like listening to a power metal band playing, but all the songs are 10 minutes instead of 5 minutes. You know, but Seven Horns, Seven Eyes seem to have struck upon something. I guess it's, again, like most things now, it's a hybrid of other things. It's a hybrid of death metal and a little whiff of the Degenti thing. I think a little whiff of Meshuggah in there. There's definitely some really kind of intricate syncopated riffs and rhythms, you know, which are quite distinctive to this band, I think, but still, you know, vaguely reminiscent of some other things that are going on, I suppose. But also they incorporate a lot of what I would describe as progressive rock influenced ideas in their stuff. Some of the solos are very, very reminiscent of Pink Floyd. You know, there'll be something, you know, turbulent and churning and grim going on in the background, some really kind of brutal riff. But then over the top, there's a really kind of space rocky, kind of floaty guitar solo, which is really quite a startling contrast at times, and it works brilliantly. I mean, some of the songs that I think, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, doubtless you would have heard Divine Amnesty at the very least, which was the track that was released. It's the first track on the album, which is stunning. And also the Winnowing, which I played on my Total Rock show a few weeks ago, is, you know, they're just incredibly heavy. You know, it's crushing stuff. It is really brutal, and it definitely qualifies as death metal to some degree. But it's got that kind of progressive adventurousness about it, which makes it endlessly fascinating. I think the vocals are brutal. There's no irritating clean vocals that sound like a 12-year-old girl, you know, which is what kills most metalcore for me. I wouldn't mind, you know, I like clean vocals if they're proper singing by a man or a woman who actually sound like might have experienced something, but if you sound like you're 9, then don't bother, please, or at least wait until your testicles drop. And it just, I mean, incredibly brutal. There's a track called Cycle of Self, which is just savage. I mean, there's some really, really vicious stuff on this album, but at the same time, it's incredibly listenable. I think a lot of progressive metal tries too hard to be complex and tries too hard to be over the top, and you know, and that can be good. And I love ridiculous, inaccessible, unlistenable music as much as anybody. You know, probably more than most people. You know, I'll quite happily sit and listen to an hour of Japanese power electronics with a smile on my face. But having said that, I think if this kind of music is going to move forward and become something other than just an underground thing that 9 people like, then it needs bands like Seven Horns, Seven Eyes, who I think are doing something that's, you know, incredibly heavy and incredibly adventurous in its own way. But at the same time, it's accessible. You know, I think if you're into modern metal, if you're into Lamb of God, I think you should check this out. You know, I don't think it's something that's going to be that far beyond you to get into this record. I think you know, you need to support bands like this really, because they are genuinely trying to push things forward, which I think is a laudable thing, really. So yeah, there you go. Seven Horns, Seven Eyes. It's called Throes of Absolution. It's out on Basic Records now, and apparently they're Christians, but they don't sound like Christians. It always makes me laugh about extreme metal bands that are Christians. You just think, well, why is it that you're making music that sounds like it was belched up from the depths of hell? Then, I mean, how does that work? I'm not saying you shouldn't be allowed to make extreme metal, although sometimes I do kind of think, will you fuck off and get your own genre of music? Thanks very much. We're on the other side. We don't support your lot. You all believe in rubbish. Go away, you mad people. But obviously, you know, it's nice that, you know, Christians have something to do that isn't basically a massive waste of time. So I suppose playing in a heavy metal band is quite a cool way of balancing the books, I suppose. But anyway, it's just odd, you know. You listen to Seven Horns, Seven Eyes, and they just sound kind of malevolent and brutal and angry, you know. And if they're angry Christians, that's a bit worrying, because we know what angry Christians look like. They stand by the side of roads with banners saying God hates fags, you know. Anyway, hopefully they're not like there was a label a long time ago, I'm not mentioning any names, but that released quite a few albums by Christian metal bands who musically were quite interesting, and then you actually read the lyrics and realised they were bashing on about how abortion was evil and all this kind of stuff. It's like, oh, okay, so you're playing in a metal band and you're horribly right wing. That's making me a bit uncomfortable, you know. If you were Norwegian, I wouldn't mind, you know, that's fine. I'll choose how the double standards work in this arrangement, thank you very much. Anyway, there you go. I think it's a fucking brilliant record. You can ignore the fact that they believe in God, and all the hypocrisy that goes with that. Because their album is fantastic, and I'd love to see them live. I think they're quite amazing, and it's been one of those records that I've played over and over again, and I hear new things in it each time, which I don't think you can say about a lot of modern metal records, because a lot of that stuff is extremely formulaic, especially now that everything's done on laptops and Pro Tools and compressed up the chuff, and lacks the character of a lot of the older metal stuff. People say, oh, it's just because you're old and you're being nostalgic. It's really not. I think you could prove it scientifically that a lot of older metal, from Master of Puppets and Iron Maiden and Sabbath and all that stuff, just has more atmosphere than a lot of the modern stuff, and that's because of the way it was recorded, and the way it was mastered, and that's just, it is a matter of taste, of course, but I don't want everything to sound the same. I want bands to have a distinctive character, and I think Seven Horns, Seven Eyes do. I'm waffling now, by the way, that's pretty obvious. While I'm here, I also want to give a shout out. That's something that young people say, isn't it? Well, talking about progressive metal, I want to say a few positive words about the new Tesseract EP, Perspective. It's the first thing they've done with the new singer Elliot Coleman, or the first thing proper release, I suppose. And it's 3 acoustic tracks on it, and a cover of Jeff Buckley's Dream Brother, and a new version of, which song is it? Is it Eden? I think they've done a new version of Eden with Elliot singing on it, obviously, because he's the singer now. Yes, Eden. It's called Eden 2.0. So there's acoustic versions of April, 2 tracks, Origin and Perfection. I don't know whether they've been released before, but certainly they're new to me. And Dream Brother, Jeff Buckley. I mean, if you don't know the album Grace by Jeff Buckley, then what the fuck have you been doing with your life? I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful, stunning record. The late great Jeff Buckley, and it's just gorgeous on every level. And kind of a very emotionally charged record, and the final track on it, Dream Brother, is just one of my absolute favourite songs. And so I was like, oh god, much as I love Tesseract, I was kind of cringing, thinking, oh god, have they ruined it? But actually, no, it's a brilliant version. Elliot sings it beautifully. It totally suits the band. They've done themselves proud. So yeah, I heartily recommend it. I think Tesseract are one of those bands that it's going to be fascinating to see how they evolve. I can't wait to hear their next non-acoustic release, because I think they're an extremely talented bunch with a lot of great ideas and a very distinctive sound and a very distinctive approach to what they do. I think, and if everyone thinks that all the Degenti bands sound the same, then just buy Tesseract records, because they won't always sound the same, and they're very very progressive in the real meaning of the word, and are doing something new and interesting, which I think is going to be worth paying attention to. So there you go. That's out on, I imagine, Century Media. I believe they're signed to, so I don't know when that's out, but don't care really. I've got it. You can just wait till it comes out, can't you? Seven Horns, Seven Eyes, though, that was the point of this, really. Throes of Absolution, out on Basic Records now. Get it, it's fucking monstrous, and yeah, you don't have to believe in God to like it, so as I have just proved. So there you go. Thanks for watching this, cobblers. Satan bless you all, and I'll see you the next time I could be asked to do one of these things. So yeah, cheers. Heavy metal, and I'll be off.